So I think we're live.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Hello. We're waiting a couple more people to join in a few minutes. So we usually take a couple of minutes to get to know everyone. We have a nice tradition here to share the cities that everyone is located in. So hello from Moscow.
Hello from Greater Seattle area.
So guys, share your cities and let's meet each other, get to know, and feel the global atmosphere.
I love it. Hey, I was born in Kansas City. Hi, James. Maybe we're related.
While we're waiting for a couple of more minutes for everyone to join in, I would love to present Amy today. So guys, I'm very psyched to have Amy Miller. She's senior tech recruiter at Google with 20 years of experience in recruiting. She's worked in such companies and is working in Google and worked at Microsoft and many recruiting agencies where she learned how to do real recruitment. Amy is very famous for being a very optimistic person, and I think you're famous for loving yoga pants. Is that correct?
I love yoga pants. I do. I love yoga pants. They're so comfortable. Yeah, it started. I don't know how that became my thing, but yeah, here we are, me and my yoga pants. So
yeah, and you can learn more about Amy and read her blog at recruitingyogapants.com. And today with you is me, Asmik. I'm a business development manager at Amazing Hiring. Today I will be co-hosting and asking Amy questions that you guys have crowdsourced. So basically, we asked you what are the questions that you would like to ask Amy, and we collected over 150 questions. That's amazing. Thank you very much for everyone for contributing. And we couldn't do all the 150 questions, even though they were all great. So we had to pick 20 something. So we'll go over them today. Our agenda will be sourcing in general, Amy's schedule, and time management, self-development strategies, messaging, and engaging with candidates. Also a little bit about key productive indicators of sourcing. And we'll still ask some questions that you guys will contribute in the chat today. So feel free to ask them, but not directly in the chat. There's actually a special functionality in the question section. So please go to questions. It's tabbed right next to chat. And there you can submit a question during the webinar, and we will upvote them. And the most popular ones will actually be asked today at the last minutes. Someone is already asking if this will be recorded. Yes, it will be.
Awesome.
Yes, it will be. So you will be able to share it with your colleagues and watch it again later this evening. So we will send you an autoplay right after the webinar ends. So no worries about that. So let's see, guys. You're all across the world: Texas, Estonia, Russia, London. It's cool.
This is great.
Excited.
Thank you all for joining. I know it's late in the evening for some of you as well, so I really appreciate it. I hope you find something valuable in what we talk about today.
So I think we're ready to start. What do you think?
All right, let's go.
Perfect. So our first questions will be about sourcing, because that's what Amy does. Yeah, and let's go with question number one. What would be your go-to resource if your corporation had limited funds?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I think they mean resource for sourcing.
Right, for sure. So basically the idea is, how do I find candidates when I have no money? When my company won't pay for any of these amazing tools. So I think you want to, first of all, take stock of what you do have in front of you. And so I have the benefit, of course, of working for a very large corporation with a massive database. And Microsoft was the same way. We had a lot of information on people. If you're in an agency, you probably also have a massive database that has a bunch of people in it. So I would encourage you to learn how to mine that really well. You'd be amazed at some of the pearls that you can find just in your own database, and people that maybe we talked to 5 years ago and now they're in a different place, and you can cross-reference against just social media searches, which I'm sure we're going to dig into. So I think if you have a database and you have something you can start fishing in, start there. But then secondly, you can do some really cool stuff just with like custom search engines and doing some fun, creative Boolean stuff. Twitter has been a gold mine for me lately, and it's free. I've not paid for Twitter. So there's ways that you can just use social media and figure out where are the people I'm looking for sitting, and then just do some cool, even just simple Boolean stuff to help kind of develop a short list. And there's all kinds of free tools that you can leverage. I don't want to spend too much time on this one question because we've got a lot to cover, but I think just thinking about your own internal ATS or tool that you may have, and then just how to get creative with free social media searches and custom search engines.
I totally agree. That's actually a very great piece of advice. We at Sales also believe that working with your own database is the greatest thing because it's already warm.
Exactly. There might even be notes, might even be like, hey, I talked to this person 3 years ago. They just started a job. Oh, hey, guess what? Now they've been in that job for 3 years. Maybe I can tap into that. So lots of gold that you can find just using your own database.
Cool. I totally agree. So what do you think? By the way, if you have some experience that you would like to share, feel free to do that in the chat. Chat is actually a great way to share your own experience, maybe like best practices that you have inside your company. So, okay, let's move to the next one. Second question is, what proportion of candidates are sourced from the open market versus to internal database?
Right. That's a good one, right? Because we just told you, hey, fish in your own pond, learn how to use your database really well. But then there's also how many people am I actually finding from there? And I think this is interesting because your database is only as good as the information that you're upkeeping in it. So again, if you like, in my case in particular, if I'm looking for engineering managers and we haven't talked to people in 5 years since they were promoted, I'm going to miss them. So it's really a combination of, and I don't, unfortunately, I don't have exact data at my fingers to tell you, kind of what my personal numbers are. I would say, so it's interesting. I'd say for the most part, most people are in my database, but I'm probably finding them on the open market and then cross-referencing back. And that I think is the key. So it's hard to say that one or the other is a better source. I think it actually takes both of them together. So can we call that 50-50? But knowing that we're kind of bringing them together to create the whole picture of the person. And if it was my database, Nikita, I would share with you, but I don't own it.
Definitely, yeah, I agree. And like your internal database has some information that is very relevant to you, but it is not available on the open market. Like
absolutely,
previous interactions where you can see and feel whether this offer can be relevant for a candidate.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think the open market is going to give you. Yeah, so go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No.
No, I was just going to add that I think the open market is going to give you the most up-to-date view, but then you have to match that with what you already know. So again, like Asmik mentioned, like kind of drawing the parallels between, okay, yeah, I found this person on, Facebook or whatever, and then how do you, kind of match that to where a person is currently today? So yeah, we could talk about that all day.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have an interesting question from Sophie. She asking, how do you encourage recruiters to keep database clean and up to date? Do you have any techniques and tricks?
Man, it's a battle. And I can tell you, I struggle with it too. And I finally I really should put this on a sticky note, put it on my desk. But my bosses over the years, this isn't just my current employer, this is like everywhere I've ever worked, is like, this our ATS, our database, CRM, whatever you call it, is the source of truth. If it is not recorded in there, it did not happen. So you have to, first of all, if you're a leader, I think this comes from you, and you have to be like super blunt and be like, look, if this isn't recorded, this activity didn't happen. And so we're going to talk about KPIs later, but if you're KPI'd on things like outreaches and touches, like, then it has to be recorded. And then secondly, I've just had to train myself to just do it live. When I'm on the phone with a candidate, and I do a lot of video calls, so it looks a lot like this, where we're kind of face to face, and I'm looking this way because I'm typing away, putting my notes in the database. But I'll tell candidates, I want to capture this live. I want to get the information while it's fresh, and I'll actually enter it while it's happening. So it's just something I think it's a combination of, first of all, getting your recruiters on board with the importance of having clean, up-to-date data and kind of showing them why it benefits them. And then secondly, the recruiters just need to kind of own doing it in the moment. Because if you don't do it when it happens, you're going to forget, because it is a low priority activity. Going and doing data entry is not helping me make a placement, except it kind of is, because I need that data later and I don't want to forget it because it's all stored up here.
I totally agree. And that's interesting because most people like taking notes like on a piece of paper, but
Yes.
that's actually, that's evil, pure
Yes.
evil.
Yes. I've had to train myself. Yes. Yeah. I used to print out resumes and I would color code them, and I had different smiley faces or things meant different things, and I would do that on paper. And this is, 15, 20 years ago. I can't do that anymore. It's not allowed. But I had to really train myself to get away from the writing and get to the typing. So it's a work in progress. I still screw up, but that's my best advice, especially for leadership. Like, really drive that message. Like, this is beneficial to you because.
I agree. So yeah, basically implement that in your policy and like try to learn new things.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Next question today is, how do you estimate match on soft skills, competences, and company fit on the sourcing stage?
This is such an interesting question. I've been thinking about this one since I first saw this deck. Man, that's a tough one, because I don't know that you can, right? And I'm always, especially at the sourcing stage, I am so sensitive to screening in versus screening out. I don't want to put up arbitrary walls or reasons to not move someone forward, especially on something as nebulous as culture fit. Because honestly, if we're being honest with each other, culture fit is sometimes code for this person doesn't look like me, doesn't sound like me, didn't grow up where I did, didn't go to the school that I did, things like that. So I think recruiters are kind of front line to not let that happen. And so I think that there are, I usually do it in the way of posing a question to the prospective candidate, and I'll use Microsoft as an example. I was there for so many years. It's a big giant corporation. Okay. The culture is going to look very different depending on where in big giant corporation you are. But there is this large, well-established 40-year-old company. Does that feel like a place where you could be successful? Are you, especially if a candidate's coming from a startup or coming from a world that's very different, try to give them a really good kind of insight, like, this is what the day-to-day looks like, and here's kind of what the politics look like, and yeah, we do a lot of meetings, and things like that. So it's more about trying to give candidates an honest picture of what a company looks like, and then letting them decide if they want to opt in or not. That's the best thing. But I think, the screening in and, those things we can continue to discuss and vet as we move through the interview process, depending on how many touch points there are, technical screens or fit calls or whatever they might be. But in the very early sourcing stages, we just want people to agree to take the next step. I'm not asking you to join my company. I'm asking you to have a conversation with an engineering leader. So the join my company comes much later, after we've had a chance to continue to vet both hard as well as soft skills.
Okay, so basically screening in versus screening out. That's a great motto for sourcers, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
And painting a clear picture of what the culture looks like and letting them decide.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's very honest and great approach to move from, I would say, biases.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. We have to get away from the check the box approach. It can't just be, okay, this person has this skill, check. Okay, this person's worked for this competitor, check. We really have to dig a little deeper. And again, I think recruiters are the front line of that. And we can set the standard and kind of set the example for the rest of the company, in my opinion.
Love it. Love it. So the next question is our recruiters are today asking is that, in your mind, what separates average, good, and great sourcers?
How much time do we have? No, this is this could be a heated one. I think the number one skill or the number one, characteristic, it's a combination of curiosity and hustle. I don't think just one or the other does it. I think you have to genuinely be an inquisitive person by nature and want to learn and want to understand and want to ask questions. And you also need to have some hustle. Like you have to recognize when there's the volume idea, and there's I've got to talk to X number of people to get to the people that will actually go through the finish line. But then there's also that's keeping it very personal. And so that's where I think the inquisitive part comes in, because it's now moved from just, okay, I'm going to hustle and, check my box and talk to a certain number of people, but I'm actually adding to that some genuine curiosity and seeking to understand the people that I'm talking to. So that is what makes a great sourcer, in my opinion. I think a good sourcer maybe has one or the other, hasn't quite figured out how to put them together. And an average sourcer, I think, is just doing the minimum, right? I think if you're relying solely, as much as I'm a fan of my database, and we talked about that in the very first question, if you're only limiting yourself to that and you're not allowing yourself to think creatively or get out of that box or try different things or ask for help or look for ways to learn and improve your own skill set, then you're going to be average. There's always going to be a job for you, especially in a market like this. We can't hire enough recruiters and sourcers, but I think that staying within those really kind of rigid, this is how we've always done it guidelines is going to keep you from advancing to good, then great.
So let's ask ourselves a question. Are we good, great, or average sourcers, and what we can do to become better?
Yeah, depends on the day at my desk, I'll be honest. There are days I'm flat mediocre. I'll admit it.
Everyone has days like that, and I think it's just understanding that we're all human.
Yes,
and
for sure.
It matters what we really want to achieve.
Yeah.
And who we really want to be. Great sourcers.
Yeah,
awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think the next question is, while sourcing for the role, at what point do you realize that you're done with LinkedIn and it's time to move on to another candidate source?
I think that happened for me about 3.5 years ago. I'm only partially kidding. No, I think, no knock on LinkedIn. And I worked for Microsoft during the LinkedIn acquisition, and we were all caught a little off guard. We're like, what just happened here? Why did we do that? Wow. LinkedIn recruiter seats for everybody. No, it was fine. And again, I think that LinkedIn is great if it works, right? And so I would just ask you guys to ask yourselves, where are my candidates? If you can show me that there is a massive audience, and I think LinkedIn will give you reports like this or market insights or whatever, like if you can actually say, okay, there's 1 million profiles that roughly fit what I'm looking for, and I can drill down and find the right information and the right people, great, use LinkedIn. If you're not seeing that, if your people are not in that pond, get out of it. So don't beat yourself up and think that you absolutely have to be on LinkedIn because everyone else is. If they're not there, they're not there. In my case in particular with engineering managers, and I think I mentioned this early in the call, Twitter's been a gold mine for me lately. So I don't even bother with LinkedIn unless I'm not seeing enough information between, in my case, Twitter and my database. And then I'll go back to LinkedIn and say, okay, is there something else that I can add to this larger picture of the person? But I don't start in LinkedIn, like ever. I would say 98% of the time I'm starting somewhere else.
Interesting. So why does it happen? Do you want to go on a different direction? You don't want to repeat the same steps as other recruiters usually do?
So I think for me, and again, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for salespeople, they're probably all over LinkedIn. You probably couldn't swing a loaf of bread without hitting 17 of them. So, if that's what you're looking for, go for it. For my candidates and the people I'm looking for specifically, if they are on LinkedIn, they have a very sparse profile. Like there's just not enough detail for me to really effectively know, is it worth all of our time, me and the candidate or the prospect, to make this outreach? In mails also, like a 20-30% response rate is not good enough for me. And I know you can improve that with better messaging. I get it, but even a 50 or 60, like I want everyone to respond to everything I say. I want 100%, even if it's no, at least you've responded. And with email, so direct email outreach, I personally get a much better, probably closer to 80%, if I'm being honest, but I'm at least getting more responses. And I'm using LinkedIn just to fill in gaps when I can. But frankly, my audience just isn't there. If they're there, I know that much about them, and it's just not enough. So I need other platforms, other social media footprints, other things to create a more comprehensive picture.
So what you're saying is like evaluate where your audience is.
Yes.
If it's on Twitter, go there. If it's GitHub, and there are many like analytical tools that can help you, like LinkedIn Insights. Amazing Hiring has something similar too. You can see where the candidates usually come from. So that's
definitely. That is so key. And it's okay to say, I'm not finding people here. That's okay. I mean, any recruiting leader, any hiring manager should respect that you as the expert are bringing that information and saying, this is not a good source of candidates. I have these other 3 sources of candidates that have pulled. And so being able to really track your data and say, this is where we're getting responses from. This is where we're actually finding people. This is who's responding to us. So don't be afraid to play around and get creative, but make sure that you're tracking really carefully so that when you go back and make your pitch for why you need to purchase a different tool or why you need to spend time somewhere else, you're able to prove it.
Totally agree. Numbers, trying to track and be analytical as possible.
Maybe use source of hire in your database. Keep that clean.
By the way, throughout my, I've interviewed many recruiters who wanted to purchase Amazing Hiring, and surprisingly, not a lot of people track the source of hire.
It's interesting, right?
20% of them, it's just like, it's crazy important. Because it's very important. Because if you don't know where you hire candidates from, you can't really make strategic decisions about your next steps. And
exactly. You don't know where to invest your time. If you're getting the bulk of your candidates, again, not to pick on LinkedIn, because I think it's great for what they're good at. If you're getting, 40% or more of your hires are coming from LinkedIn searches, then that is where you need to be searching. If they're coming from employer referrals, you better start buying people some pizza and talk about their friends. There's different ways to attack it. But don't feel like you have to start with LinkedIn if you're just not finding what you need.
I agree. Listen to that, guys. Track the sources of your hires. It's really very important. I agree. So, okay, moving on to our next question. This is more about the future. Looking 3-5 years ahead, what are your predictions regarding development of sourcing as a part of recruitment, and how not to become replaced by software and keep on being great at talent sourcing? So I think a lot of recruiters are afraid of being replaced by machines.
I agree. And I love this question so much. And there was a question earlier in the comments that I think dovetails into this nicely about, some people think sourcers are really just junior recruiters. And I think that mindset is what drives things like this, where, if this is just a junior person who's just, finding LinkedIn profiles, we can hire, we can buy software to do that. Yeah, absolutely. You can. You know what you can't hire software to do? You can't hire software to engage one-on-one. You can't hire software to build out a comprehensive talent map of the players at your competitors. They might be able to do it to an extent, but they're not going to be able to show you the interpersonal relationships and things that are going on inside. So what I would love to see from sourcers in the next few years, especially thinking about future of automation and AI, all those fun buzzwords that people always love to sell us. You want to, in my opinion, a great sourcer is one that is able to really tap into their market. Your market could look very different. You may have a geographically specific market. I know all the software engineering managers in the greater Seattle area. I mean, I don't, but wouldn't that be the dream? So, you're really able to tap that and have that data at your fingertips. Like, I've done all the searching. I've looked at all the org charts. I've done all the deep dive, calling into companies and finding out who works for who and who partners where, and being able to bring that back and say, okay, look, we have a lot of front end people in this market. Your market may also be certain competitors. I know everybody that's at the big three that we compete with. Your market may be a particular section of, so for example, I worked with a sourcer years ago who was like an expert in computer vision. Like, she can't code. She doesn't, she's not an expert in that way, but she was so deeply connected to that industry. People knew who she was going to NIPS conference. Like, she was known as the recruiter who gets computer vision. And that's powerful, right? If you have that kind of insight and you're the person that can be relied on from a recruiting or talent acquisition perspective to go to you and say, hey, this space really well. Who are the players? What's the market? What do people cost? Who are my competitors? That's incredibly valuable. And you really only get that deep kind of insight from personal connections. So picking up the phone and talking to those people, tracking them when they're moving from one company to another. Tools will give you a high level view, which is not always accurate, but the people are actually, think about like a QA, like they're quality checking that this is correct data and watching the moves and knowing where people are and what they need to make a change. So that's what I would love to see sourcing evolve into is more of a strategic talent mapping, industry experts.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, that's actually something that is hard to replace at this point.
Yeah, good luck.
And you mentioned, by the way, that tracking where
Mhm.
candidates move to is important. Do you use any specific techniques to do that, or is it just basic like LinkedIn notifications?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I would love to hear if anyone is doing this really well, because right now it's super manual for me. It's like a note in the
Me too,
database.
yes.
It's LinkedIn updates, things like that. I have kind of a regular running list of people I want to keep an eye on and kind of check every 6 months or so. What are you up to now? But yeah, I think if the thing is, there will hopefully be really cool ways to automate certain parts. Like, if you could automate a way to send me a notification or an email or update my database automatically when those changes happen, great. But you're still going to need that great sourcer to act on that and to be able to actually figure out what is the story that we're getting with this data. The machine's going to give you the data. What you do with it and how you interpret it and how you solve business problems with it is up to the person behind the data. And that's where the sourcer comes in.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I agree. And if there's anyone who's doing software engineering, please find a way to track those people who change their jobs, because it's really hard work, manual work that we need to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely.
so how do you find the best 1% on the market?
Yeah, this is great. I would, so before I would index too heavily on this, I would first of all want to make sure that we're all defining 1% the same. I'm not sure that we are. And I would also, especially if this is an ask from my business or from my hiring partners, are you offering the best 1% of opportunities?
Great.
I mean, not every position requires an A player, depending on who you are and where you're coming from. So it's such an interesting question, and I'm probably not going to have the best answer. And so apologies to the person who asked this, but I really, really want you to ask some hard questions of the people that are expecting this of you. I think, and I actually wrote a blog post about this just recently. So if you go check out recruitingandyogapants.com and look at, no, you don't want to hire the best. You don't, you really don't. That 1%, you might find like the premier machine learning expert PhD from MIT, like knows everything about this. That person may not be right for your company. As great as they are at whatever their chosen field might be, that doesn't mean that they're going to flourish in your specific role. So be careful of questions like that. It would be my answer, my very long-winded answer to this very simple question. Make sure that's really what you want before you go looking for it.
I love this one. Yeah, it's a question to our question.
Oh, yes.
So next section.
Yeah.
What's your daily schedule? How do you block time? And do you actually do what you've blocked time for?
As much as I can, but I've had to really learn to forgive myself repeatedly every day when I don't stick with it. So no, this is important. And for me, I color code my calendar. So I actually have like each kind of bucket of activity has a color. Making offers is green because it's the color of money. So whenever I'm doing an offer call or a pre-close call or typically anything kind of related to the back half of the candidate process, it's green because I know those are high reward activities, high value activities. I want to make sure I'm not missing those for sure. Client meetings are generally blue. Meetings with my boss or my staffing leadership are red. I don't know what I'm telling myself by making it red. I saw a lot of red pen when I was a kid growing up. I don't know. But I kind of just have this, certain colors mean certain things. So I can kind of look at a glance and know what my day is going to be like. Oh, this is a heavy client meeting day, lots and lots of blue on there. Or, oh, this is, all about the candidate and yellow is sourcing. I don't know why yellow sourcing. Maybe I should change that to green. I don't know. But okay, I know I'm really going to spend some quiet time digging in. And that also helps me decide. And we talked about this privately, you and I, before the call about working from home versus working in an open office versus working in a conference room. And so by knowing what my colors are for the day, it helps me kind of decide like, okay, where am I going today? Where am I spending time? Do I need to be in front of clients today? That's a different building, things like that. So, and it changes. Don't get me wrong. I don't live and die by it because things happen and you have to pivot. But one thing I am very, very careful about is managing expectations with people who want my time. And so an example of that, whenever I'm engaging with a new client, I'm very clear, like, how often do you want to meet? How important is this role to you? How much time are we going to spend together? Those kinds of things. We will set up regular syncs if that's what we both agree to and contract that this is important enough to do so. And if I'm getting a call or I'm getting an email that's outside of our regular sync, I have actually said to managers, this is Tuesday. Tuesday's not your day. You and I will talk on Thursday. Is your building on fire? Did you lose the candidate? Did something terrible happen? Then we will talk on Thursday. And so, just kind of training them to understand that my calendar looks the way it does for a reason. And in order to give you the best of me, let me do what I need to do during this time. So I'm very, very jealous of my calendar and really hold people to it, and you have to be flexible. Like literally, if the candidate's missing, you better drop everything and go find them. But don't be afraid to push back and say, I've got this time blocked for something else, but I'm happy to give you time whenever you can.
And what's your client's reaction to that?
The person I actually said that to, this has been a few years now, but the actual conversation we had, he kind of tilted his head and then he started laughing, and I was like, oh, thank God. So he understood, like, I was being a little facetious, but still trying to make a point. And but it was good. But I think part of it too, though, is this is going off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's really embracing that you're a partner in this. You're not a support person. You're not their recruiting admin or their sourcing admin. You are a partner. And so if your hiring manager or whoever the partner may be that is wanting your time and wanting to kind of impinge on whatever your calendar is blocked for, would they do that to an HR partner or to a finance partner or to a PM partner? So, we're no different. Like we're just as important, and we're just doing a different kind of work, but our time is just as valuable. So don't be afraid to very appropriately and professionally and in a friendly way push back and be like, is this critical? Because if it's not critical, we already have time tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So. That's interesting. I'll try that.
Give it a try. Let me know. Pick your audience. Go with the nice ones first.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because it could be like a crisis situation.
It could. Some people may not respond great. So pick your battles.
But yeah, it's always about respecting yourself. Definitely. And your own attitude to yourself, and then people react.
100%.
So last question about schedule is what are the things that you do consistently that made you the sourcer that you're today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't want to quote anyone because I'm afraid I'll give it to the wrong person, the credit to the wrong person, but just know that I didn't make this up. Years and years and years ago, as an agency recruiter, I was taught the question of the day is, where's my send out? So the idea is that every day I have a prospective candidate talking to a person that can make a hiring decision. So candidate, hiring manager, every single day, there is a match of someone talking to someone. That's not always an interview. Sometimes it's just an early fit call or a technical screen, or you could call it any number of things. But the question was, where's that happening? Do I have that happening? If that's happening, the rest of your numbers are probably okay. You're probably talking to enough candidates. You have enough job orders. If I'm an agency recruiter, there's usually, that's a good marker that there's enough activity before and after. But you want to take that a step further and make sure that you're looking at the entire funnel. So if I'm forced to put it into one thing, there's probably 12 things I could say that would be the answer to this question. But the one thing is really understanding what's working. That yes, I have the right activity happening often enough, but that everything else feeding into it or coming out of it is also looking right. So metrics, and not being afraid to be very, very honest with myself where things are falling apart so that I know what to improve.
So basically doing the thing that actually brings you highs on a constant
crazy, right? Yes. Getting people hired. That is what's made me the recruiter I am today.
But that's interesting because sometimes we have so much like processes and so much stuff that people think that we need to do that we forget what is the actual thing that brings us highs. Is that sending messages? Is that calling? Is that forcing? Yeah. And for everyone, like for different positions, it's a different thing.
100%. Okay, but really, if we're in the business of connecting people, like we should have that connection happening at least once a day. It might be more than that. It might be 10 times a day. It might be 2 times a week. If you're an exec search or you're dealing with a different, you kind of need to figure out. I'm not saying it should be daily for you, but I'm saying that's the one marker that everything else kind of flows into or flows from.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. And the next section of our Q&A is self-development. And the first question is, how do you gain IT-related knowledge?
I love this question because I guarantee that every single person listening is more technical than I am.
I can't. No, I won't believe that.
I am the least technical tech recruiter on the planet. That's a fact. I keep up Wiki when I need it. I know that Java and JavaScript are different. I know just enough to be dangerous, but honestly, I don't over-index on needing to learn how to code or needing to know all the intricacies of different coding languages. Like, I don't need to know any of that. I need to be able to tell that my candidate knows that. So I know how to ask the right questions. And I know, basically, I think recruiters, especially if you've been doing it as long as I have, your BS detector becomes very, very finely tuned. And so if I'm asking someone, well, what is your, what coding language are you currently using? Oh, I'm in C++. Okay, great. So how often, how many hours of the day are you writing code? Oh, I'm doing it 5 hours a day. Okay, great. And so you can kind of ask questions to drill into what's the problem that you're solving by writing code 5 hours a day in C++. And if they're not able to articulate it, they're probably not doing it or not as well versed in a particular technology as they may want you to believe. So there's ways that you can get.
So it's more about understanding.
Signal. Yeah.
More like understanding people rather than technology, right?
I think so, 100%. And I say this to my managers as well. I'm like, look, you're the technical expert. I'm going to rely on you to vet that this person knows what they're talking about. They've told me this is what they're doing. They've told me this is a language they're using. They've explained to me in a simple way that I could understand the problem they're solving by doing this. I think they're right. I think that, I think this person is showing the right people skills, if you will, soft skills. I'm going to rely on you for more of a technical, whether that's a whiteboard exercise, whether that's a coding assessment. It looks different for different companies, but I would never let my lack of IT knowledge keep me from being the best recruiter. It's just, that's not my superpower. My superpower is people and closing. Frankly, that's what I'm really good at. But I can stumble my way through sourcing and vetting and screening too.
Next time when people ask me what superpower do you want, I will say closing.
Yes, it comes in handy.
Yeah, especially if you're a recruiter or a salesperson.
Oh, especially with all the competing offers. It's insane. So I don't win them all, but I win a lot. So.
Oh. So that's an interesting perspective. I've never heard of that way, because usually recruiters are so they're not sure about themselves. They have some they want to be better at the tech parts to prove to candidates that they are equals, but that's not what makes you equals. Understanding people.
Right. I know, and I would never want to take away from super technical people that are really good at this. I think if that's your thing, there are other recruiters and sourcers that can teach you that, and it's not me. But if you're looking for, some, I guess, maybe permission or just, it's okay to not be super technical. And I say this to candidates. I tell them, I am the least technical person that you're going to talk to throughout this entire process. Just so you know, don't get any expectations of me because I won't meet them. But what I am really good at and what I can do for you is be your guide throughout this process, because I know our interview process really well. I know what our offer looks like. I know all the things that we're looking for as you move through this process. So that's where my expertise is going to be beneficial to you. My expertise of the market, of my company, of the process, of recruiting strategies, of how important this role is. Those are all the things that I'm bringing to you. You don't need me to know how to write code in Python. You don't care. You care that I can get you in front of the right people saying the right things.
Cool. Thank you very much for sharing that insight.
Yeah.
And the next question is, what are the qualities of the best hiring managers you've ever worked with? I think maybe managers in general even.
Definitely. As I'm thinking about hiring managers, and I love this question, and I actually just got an email yesterday from a manager I worked with many, many years ago, who is now, potentially on the market himself. And it was great because it was because of that relationship that we had built so many years ago, 2 or 3 companies ago, whatever it was, that he's remembered me. And he's like, hey, you were great to work with as my recruiter. Now, as a job seeker, and we have this, we have this weird flex now that's happening. But I think what made him so great to work with is he was really a partner. Like, he took the time to spend time with me as we were building his team and figure out, okay, here are the things that I need. Here's why I need them. So it's not a reactive, like I'm pulling up to the drive-through and saying, hey, Amy, I need 3 cheeseburgers, 2 of them with no lettuce and 1 with extra pickles. Like that's a terrible start to a partnership. But what we did is we really sat down and said, okay, tell me about you. Tell me about your team. Tell me about what you guys are doing. What is this big, how does your team's effort and the product that you're building feed into the company's overall goals? And so really drawing this comprehensive picture of what this person's team was doing, and then being very, very thorough with feedback. So once we had a good idea of what you're looking for, and we've got some keywords and we have a pitch for the candidate, now we're bringing you candidates. And so now we want to talk about, and we want to really dig into the feedback. Why is this person a yes? Why is this person a no? So the best hiring managers I've ever worked with have been ones that viewed me as a partner and were willing to answer questions, no matter how silly they may seem, willing to understand that I'm bringing the recruiting expertise. They're bringing the business expertise, the technical expertise, the hiring savvy. I'm bringing the recruiting. And so really being willing to being on an even playing field with me changes everything.
Okay, so hiring managers who are being partners.
Yes.
Is that
100%? Yeah, they're willing to the ones that just kind of do the drive-by and like throw their order at you, that's never going to be a good partnership. But the ones that are willing to invest in the time and getting to know me, getting to know, how we're going to process, how we're going to work together, and then willing to kind of give and take, those are the best hiring managers ever. Like just the ones that get it. And so if a manager won't meet with you, that's a bad sign. That's not going to be on my list. That's not a good manager. But it's the ones that recognize like we are in this together, and it's going to take conversations and partnerships and regular communication back and forth.
And does it work both ways? I mean, do you have you ever practiced rejecting working with some hiring managers if you feel like from the get-go it's not working out for both of you?
So meaning like firing a manager?
No, like maybe rejecting something. I don't know. Has that ever happened to you? Or it's more like understanding that it won't work possibly and trying to fix that?
Okay, so I think I'm clear on what you're asking, and so check me if I'm getting this wrong, but there's a great anecdote if we have a couple minutes for a quick story. I had a manager once that, this is a different company, but he felt like the best use of his time and well, his team's time, because he wasn't there, but his team and my time was to spend hours every week searching LinkedIn for profiles. And then basically the team would say yes or no to the profiles. And then I would then have to go back and act on those profiles. I mean, hours and hours and hours every week. And I proposed to the director, who was my manager, my hiring manager. I said, look, this isn't working. We've been doing this for several months. I would actually took over from a different recruiter who'd been doing this. Like, we've been doing this for several months. We've made 0 hires. So I'm going to ask you to please allow us to activate on our sourcing strategy. We have dedicated sourcing team. This is how we do it. This is what you're going to see from us. Let us do this and we'll actually get you some hires. And he said, no, that's not how we're going to do this. You're going to do it my way. And I was like, your way's dumb. No, I didn't say that. That would have got me in trouble. But I was like, okay, that's interesting. Here's what we're going to do instead. And so I actually gave him I rejected every other meeting. They kept putting these meetings on my calendar and I would decline every other one. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this one, but I'm not going to go to that one. And so I used the time that I wasn't spending in this room looking at mindless profiles to actually do more deep dive strategic sourcing and getting my sourcing team on board. And so after 3 months, we actually did a side-by-side comparison. And we found that we actually made 6 hires through my way and 0 hires through the manager's way. So I really had to work myself to death for 90 days and have everyone mad at me in order to gather the data and show it to him. And then he looks around the room and says, Why are you having her come to this meeting 4 times a week? It's obviously not working.
My
Why
God.
indeed? So sometimes, again, they're engineers, it's data. Sometimes you have to like kind of eat it for a few months just to gather enough information to go back and say, so remember that idea I had? Here's what it looks like.
Yeah, speak their language too.
Exactly. Yeah, it was great.
Okay.
Great example of a turnaround. I wouldn't say we were ever friends, but we did have a better relationship after that.
Interesting. Yeah, you understood my question. So
Good. Okay,
moving
good.
on to the next one. What is your biggest piece of advice for teams new to the digital world of recruiting?
Yeah, don't get distracted. That's the biggest thing. It's so easy to fall into this trap of, oh, I've got to be on every social media outlet and I've got to be everywhere and I've got to build a brand and I've got to do all this shiny stuff. No, you don't. You basically need a phone and an Excel spreadsheet. Like you can recruit with just that, honestly. There are a lot of great tools that can make your life easier and make certain things more streamlined, capture data more effectively. I'm not saying don't use them, but I am saying don't feel like you have to do everything. You will be so distracted and you will be chasing every new shiny toy that comes out that you will actually not get any real work done.
Okay, don't be distracted, guys.
Easier said than done, I know.
And the next one, what is your favorite brand of yoga pants?
I was thinking about this. I was trying, there's a few ways I could answer this because you have the yoga pants that are only appropriate for at-home comfort because they don't hide anything. I love those. Leggings Depot, available on Amazon. And I actually, cell phone pocket is critical. I agree with Vivian. And breathable. Breathable is also key. I have some pants that are a little more on the polyester side that are not great for the summertime. But no, I actually bought a pair for stateside folks. You'll probably recognize this store at Ross, which is kind of like an off-brand. They resell like all the extra fancy stuff you'd find at Nordstrom's, if you will, like a discount store, I guess. And the problem with shopping at a place like Ross is that you never find the same thing twice. I found an amazing pair of yoga pants with a cell phone pocket. Amazing stretch. I could wear them anywhere and I will never find them again. So I really need to, I think, like source the designer and see where I can buy more because they're great.
Amy, we should have really taken advantage and maybe created some affiliate links to Amazon or something.
Right?
Yeah, but no, guys, we're not like that.
Yeah, just go.
Okay. So wear yoga pants.
Yeah.
How do you feel about men wearing yoga pants?
I am an equal opportunity comfort endorser. I think if it feels good and you're not frightening school children, go for it.
My gosh. Okay. So next one. Oh, wait, we're moving on to the fourth section. And this one is about engaging with candidates. And we're asking, how do you engage with candidates for reading and details, resumes?
Right. I most of my early engagement, if I've never spoken with someone before, I've never seen their resume. I've seen maybe a LinkedIn profile, which we talked about is usually pretty sparse in my world. I've seen a Twitter bio. I've seen, I don't really look at Facebook so much, but other social media sites, maybe GitHub, personal blogs are huge. If you can find someone's personal blog, you are like looking into their soul. Like this is the stuff that matters to them, right? So I'll give you an example. I have this just recently. I'm searching for a engineering manager to work for our gaming team in YouTube. And I did some Twitter searches, had some, just some Boolean stuff I did on Twitter. And I found a list of folks and I created a list. These are engineering managers to follow. So I put them all on my list. Half of them now are following me. So that's interesting. But what I did is I went back and kind of shortlisted, okay, here are the ones that I think are ready to make a move. They've been in their current company for a reasonable amount of time, 3 years or more. They've got the right kind of background. They've said something specific about gaming, which is cool because we kind of want somebody who likes games, even if they're not an active gamer, that's okay, but just even a casual gamer. So I made that short list, and then I took I try to make even the subject line really fun, right? So this one in particular that I just talked to this week, I put like Twitch streamer plus YouTube equals dream job. And then I put in the subject like, hey, I reached out to you for these specific reasons. You mentioned this specific thing on your personal blog, which I think we can give you here. And here's a quick, kind of explanation of the job. And he emailed me back on vacation and said, I'm in Europe until next week, but I would love to talk to you. Yay! So, it's really just pulling out those little pieces that you can find that are probably not on a resume anyway, and then crafting a message around it.
Okay. So find anything you can on social media.
If somebody emailed me and said, hey, Amy, I read your blog and I thought this thing you said was super funny. By the way, I'm hiring a recruiter near you. What do you think? I would talk to that person if for no other reason than to thank them for reading my blog. It has nothing to do. Like if you're just calling me and saying, hey, I've got a great job and I like your experience at Google. I hear that all the time. That's not interesting. Tell me why me. I want to know why you specifically called me. Am I another number on your list, or am I actually someone you saw some value in what I've done and in my accomplishments and you want to learn more? That's the key. The resume has nothing to do with that. Resume comes later.
Mm-hmm. So invest your time to learn candidates and compliment them. Have some pickup lines.
Compliments go a long way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the next one about messaging is, how do you do cold text messaging?
Yeah,
what's the preferred source? That email, LinkedIn, social media? I think you pretty much answered it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of personal email. I really am. I'm okay with text messaging. I get them, and that's fine. I am personally a huge fan of just email outreach. It's an opportunity to be personalized. It's also private. If you're tweeting at somebody, hey, I want to recruit you, that can be uncomfortable for the people that are also seeing that. So again, you can kind of play with things that work for you. I 99% am using a personal targeted email, and it works almost every time.
Okay. Yep. Nothing to add. I agree. The best source, the best outreach way. Is there anything in your reach chat messages that you found to be especially effective in piquing the prospect's interest?
Yeah, there's two big things. So, which we already kind of talked about. One is obviously something that is directly personally correlated to the person. Like you have to really show you're not just a name and an email. You're actually a profile that I have looked at. Like I have read up about you and I have looked at the publicly available information that you've put out there and decided based on that, I'm interested in a conversation. So just taking the time to prove, and it doesn't have to be smarmy. It doesn't have to be, oh, you like Oreo cookies? So do I. I mean, you can try that. It might work, but just showing that you've paid attention. And then secondly, I have a specific thing I want to talk to you about. I actually get so grossed out by the, oh, I just want to be friends. And, oh, I just want to make you part of my network. And, oh, I just want to bug you for people like make it about me. It may not be the right time for me to make a change, and it may not be a good job for me to move into, but at least tell me what you want from me. Give me a reason to respond to you, even if it's a thanks for, but not right now, or not that job. But if you're just blasting me with, hey, I want to have a beer with you. No, I like having beer in my house by myself. I don't want to have a beer with you.
Being like upfront about what you actually want.
100%. Look, I'm a recruiter. I'm not going to kid anybody into thinking that I'm interested in anything more than getting them hired at my company. Like that's pretty obvious just because of what I do. Doesn't mean you can't build a long-term, maybe not now, but maybe in 6 months. That's totally okay. But let's not pretend that my goal is to potentially connect you with opportunity. That's why we're having the conversation. It's okay to own that.
Okay. And do you reject your candidates? Like in what way do you do that?
Phone, 100% phone. If we have had a phone conversation, I owe you a phone conversation to close out, to close the loop. If it's like just you've applied, I know a lot of companies will do kind of an auto response. Like it's just, if there hasn't been human interaction there, I know it may not feel great, but just because of volume, sometimes that's what companies have to do. But if there has been communication, if you and I had a phone screen, if you've talked to a hiring manager, especially if you've interviewed and all of the practice and time and everything else that goes into that, I owe you a live phone call. So yeah, definitely phone.
Yeah. If all the recruiters would do that, that would be a perfect
It's
world.
hard. Like I have to psych myself up for it. And I think sometimes I'm more upset than my candidates are because they have 3 other offers, but I'm disappointed. So, but yeah, it's just something. And I mean, look, some people are really good at it. I suck at it. I hate it. I get emotional. I start sweating. I've been known to like tear up. Like, don't think I'm good at it, but know that I do it.
Yeah, it's the golden rule of morale. Do what
Yeah,
you expect other people to do.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So the next question about messaging is, how do you keep your warm pool of candidates engaged to be hired at your earliest convenience?
Yeah, at my convenience. Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I appreciate the spirit of the question because I do know that you're going to have, certain, like you're going to need to activate at certain times. You need this person to do this job now. And I understand that, but you have to also understand that candidates also are going to do what's in their best interest on their time frame. So the best thing that you can do in order to keep a pool of candidates warm, I mean, this is all very tricky because it can look very not personal, which we don't want. So I would just say, I don't know that there's a good way to do this because honestly, a lot of it is just timing. It's timing. You're gonna find the right person at the right time for you, and I mean, you can check in with people. You can kind of keep them informed. I think the best question to ask up front, if you want to put someone in a pool, for lack of a better way to put that, make sure it's okay with them. Hey, can I call you when I find a job that looks exactly like what you want to do? If you want to hear from me in the future, what should I be calling you with? And so kind of getting their permission up front to engage them on your time frame is okay, but make sure you're being transparent about that. Like, this is how we're gonna roll. This is how I operate. So
Yeah, I agree. We do that in sales too. And if people say, well, I will reach out to you if it's relevant, then you don't have a permission to do that. So it's
exactly
a good strategy to disturb people.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your favorite subject line for an email?
Yeah. I like, again, like the one I just shared earlier, finding something really personal to the person, plus what I have to offer, and equals something really cool, right? Like that seemed to really resonate. And I also, another one that I used, this was at Microsoft, but back when Windows 8 launched, and it wasn't the most well-loved operating system at the time, for those that remember. And so I actually led with "want to make Windows 8 better." That was my pitch. And like, hey, you're a developer, you can come and fix this stuff, so, and people loved it. Like they would call me and laugh and be like, absolutely not, but that was funny, so thanks for that, so so it's just kind of owning what's it we're trying to do here, and just owning it. But then also, again, you can go the other way and make it hyper personalized. So I think it depends on the audience, but something funny and relevant seems to work.
Cool, thanks. And the next question is, how would you approach someone when you don't have an active job, but things would open up in the future?
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes back to the permission that we talked about, right? And I think it's okay to say, hey, listen, I'm working on some long-term strategy stuff. I know that in the next X months, I'm going to have some roles that I think you could be great for. Is it okay to check in with you in 6 months? Or if I were to call you in 6 months, what would you want to hear from me? So I think just being really upfront and saying, look, I'm planting some long-term seeds here. I'm building a strategy that's not going to really happen for an amount of time. Depending on where you're at when the time comes, I think this could be a great opportunity for us to discuss. So getting that permission to follow back up, but also kind of getting on their radar early.
Okay.
So I hope that answers the question. I think there's a few ways to do that, but that's what I would do if it were me.
Thanks. Before I move on to the next question, I would like to remind that we have a questions tab where you can submit your questions and upvote them. We will come back to them a little bit later, I think in like 10 minutes by the end of our webinar, and answer the most popular ones. I think 3 or 4 most popular ones. Okay? So yeah, please upvote and ask new questions if you have any. So the last part is KPI and metrics. How many reach out messages do you send out a day? How do you track when to send a chaser one?
Yeah, I think this is going to be different depending on your industry, depending on what you're looking for and what your metrics are. So again, I always kind of go back to that golden rule of, where's my send out? Do I have somebody talking to somebody else? If I'm doing that, I'm probably doing okay. I think and it's also depending, am I a full-time sourcer? Am I a full cycle recruiter? Or am I a recruiter that has a dedicated sourcing team supplementing my efforts? So it's going to look different depending on where you sit. I think a good kind of general rule of thumb is if you're having at least 2 to 3 concrete conversations every day, as far as like an initial phone screen or a recruiter screen, you're probably going to see the right downstream metrics populating. But what I would do before you start putting numbers in place is figure out, what does your current funnel look like? And if you're talking to way too many people to get to that one hire, you've got to see where am I falling apart here, and then adjust specifically. So it may be more reach outs. It may be less reach outs, but more targeted. So there's not unfortunately a one size fits all answer here. I know for me, I probably need to be reaching out at least 2 to 3 times a day to new people. And then I should be having a send out every day. I should be having somebody connected to somebody every day, or maybe 3 times a week. Because my roles the thing with my roles is it's a much longer cycle. Like I'm basically entering into a 6-month relationship with this person from start to finish by the time we interview and negotiate and all that fun stuff. However, if you're working in a more of a high volume, like you're hiring call center representatives, you better be talking to 50 people a day, right? Sometimes in a classroom. So yeah, I mean, this is, maybe we can go deeper one-on-one. If anyone wants to follow up with me after, I'm happy to do that. But yeah, you got to figure out what your numbers should be for your specific world.
Yeah. And it's like trying and then adjusting your own approach, because it's very different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as far as the chasers, I mean, think about how you'd want to be approached. I have a real estate agent that texts me every single day. All I wanted to do was look at pictures on his website. I am not buying a house, I'm not selling my house. And now I'm trapped in like text hell with this realtor who won't stop. I feel kind of bad. I should be like, no, thank you. But I just let it keep going. So yeah, think about how you'd want to be approached. Like, is it once a week for a month? Is it once every 3 months for a year? Different things are going to work in different industries.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And I think this is the last one, but what are your KPIs?
Yeah, definitely. So I need to hire a certain number of people a month, basically. And we have quarterly goals. So the interesting thing, we are metrics, and it was like this at my last company. We are metrics on number of hires. That's it. That's the one thing that we look at. Nobody is asking me how much phone time I've spent. I used to work for an agency that actually recorded your phone time. Like they could see how many hours of the week you were on the phone. It was the weirdest thing. Thank God no one's doing that to me anymore, because so much happens over email and text, right? So it's the number of hires. Now, what I would ask you as the captain of your own ship is, what did you have to do to get there? So it's great. I've got to hire 2 people a month. Awesome. I've made my 6 hires this quarter. I'm good. That's great. That's one way to look at it. But did I talk to enough people? Did I have an, do I have kind of a bench? It's okay to exceed your goals too. Like, you should be looking at how can I improve on that. Also, is that keeping up with my business demand? I mean, I could say, hey, I need to make 6 hires, but if my business needs to make 20 hires and I'm only satisfying a third of that need, I'm not being a good partner. So there's going to be the measure that goes on your performance review, if you will, but then there's also the measure that is maybe undocumented. And so I would caution you to start with the official KPI or OKR, but then also think about how that ties into your broader partnership and your reputation and what you're known for. You want to be known for the person that solves whatever the problem is. Reaching the KPI or the OKR should just be an automatic result of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Thank you.
Yeah,
so I think that was the last one. And now we can go to the questions that attendees had asked.
Great.
And I think the one that got the most votes is, what is your recipe in closing a role?
My recipe for closing, so closing a candidate, I'm guessing is what we're talking about. It starts from the very first phone call. Hey, what do you want to hear from someone like me? Oh, I want to hear about a job that I can do this, this, and this. Okay, cool. Hey, guess what? I found a job doing this, this, and this. You want to talk to the manager? Awesome. Talk to the manager. Now, if you're thinking about making a serious change, we're getting you this, this, and this. What about that, that, and that? So all through the conversation, you're pulling out nuggets. What's missing in your current role? What do you want to see in your next role? What does compensation need to look like? Like, there's all kinds of things that go, it's emotional currency is how I think of it. What is the emotional currency for this person to make a change, to take a new job? And so now when we've made it through all these hurdles, and every time we've talked about this and that, the things that you told me are important. Now we're at the final offer. Now it's, hey, guess what? I'm putting a piece of paper with numbers on it in your hand. You're getting this thing you wanted. You're getting that thing you wanted. You're getting the numbers you wanted. What would keep you from saying yes right now? What would any other factors you need to make a decision? Anything else we've not talked about that we should? If we've done our job, most of the time it's going to be a very easy, yeah, this actually works for me. And yeah, no reason I wouldn't say yes. I want to talk to my spouse. I want to think about it over the weekend, whatever. Great. I'm also a big believer in giving people room to breathe. Not to shamelessly plug my own blog again, but here I go. I wrote an article about the hard close, which I think is utter nonsense. So I get more people saying yes to me because I'm not holding their offer letter hostage. I'm not refusing to disclose offer details or get them a piece of paper in their hand because they won't commit to me. Like, I just want people to make a decision based on what's best for them. Maybe it is Facebook today. I don't know. I don't know what Facebook is offering you. I don't know what the team culture is going to be like. I don't know what your future boss is going to be like. I can answer those questions for my company. I can't answer them for the other company. But if you want to share with me some things that are important to you, I can help you think about it and I can help you stack rank a little bit. And so kind of playing the career coach a little bit and really being mindful that I recognize you might say no to me and that's okay, really makes people so much more comfortable, and people want to work with people they're comfortable with. So guess who's probably going to get the yes?
So being open, no hard. How did you put it? No
hard close. I hate hard closes. I hate the, I had one a few years ago myself. They're like, you've had the offer letter for 24 hours. You need to make a decision. And I was like, all right, my decision's no. That fast. I went from being really excited and really considering moving to a startup, which was terrifying, to absolutely not, because if you're going to, no, I had questions. I wanted to think about it. I had still like 3 or 4 more questions that weren't answered. And I didn't get a chance to even ask because they snipped at me over, having the letter in my hand for 24 hours. Okay, I'm out. Good luck.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Another question we have from Wojtek is sourcing recruiter or better as a team, like a sourcer plus recruiter. What is your
experience? I love what I call a super recruiter. I love when you have A dedicated candidate engagement person, so a sourcer, somebody who's doing the deep research, doing the deep dive, building the talent map, building the slate. Like, here's 17 great people that fit this criteria. Let's kind of decide who we want to talk to. Coupled with the recruiter, who typically is managing the client relationship and the close. So putting those two pieces together, I think, is an amazing opportunity. I know it doesn't always work that way. It's not always possible. But if I were to build a dream team, if you gave me a magic wand, that's what it would look like. It would look like really specialized niche sourcers that operate in certain areas, market segments, technologies, whatever. And then the recruiter who's really managing the client and the back end of the process.
Thanks. Thank you. We have a couple of other questions. Would you like to choose them?
Oh, gosh. I think it's Morgan, I hope I'm saying this right, about building a brand as a sourcer or recruiter. Some of the best recruiters I know you have never heard of. I mean, they are just hustlers. They are quietly doing their thing. Their clients know them well. Their candidates know them well. You will never find them on social media. As a recruiter anyway, you might find them doing other things. So no, I don't think it's required. I think if you want to do it, and if again, it's all about transparency, right? Like, I'm looking up a candidate's likes and dislikes on Twitter. Maybe they want to see mine too. So I think that's okay. But I don't think at the end of the day, it's going to really sway somebody one way or the other. I mean, if you can do it, I would just ask you to please do it well, but don't feel like you have to do it.
Thanks. Another question from Wojtek is about, like, why do you think people believe that sourcers are like junior recruiters?
Yeah, that is a shame. We shouldn't think that. And if you're a sourcer struggling with that, 30 minutes free coaching call with me anytime. Let me know, because I want to help you bust that, because that's terrible. And we don't want that. I actually work with sourcers, or have worked with sourcers, who have told me, I'm just doing this until I can move up into a recruiting role. And that just kind of breaks my heart, because if you're really good at like the deep dive searching and the Boolean technology and all kind of the intricacies of really deep mapping, you're better at this than me. Don't think you're moving up into my role. Like, I should be moving up into your role someday. So I think it comes from just the idea that, again, depending on the skill of the sourcer. So going back to, average, good, great. If you're not showing up as a great sourcer who really knows your craft and is bringing beneficial, powerful, actionable data to the relationship, you are going to be viewed as a junior person. So I think part of it is changing the mindset of leadership and getting them to understand that the sourcing function is equal and as critical as the recruiting function, if you're separated that way. But it's also, there's certainly some responsibility on the sourcer themselves to really embrace their function and bring something that is not being brought. If you're a sourcer who's just searching your own database and bringing me resumes, I'm going to look to you as probably a more junior coordinator, versus the sourcer who's coming to me and saying, here's the labor market information, here's the why, here's the where. Like, bring me the data that I don't have. That's what's going to set you apart.
Thank you. So Amy, do you have any maybe final advice that you would like to give to those strong 50 recruiters who are still in the room with us?
They stuck with us. No, thanks for that, you guys. So I think, the one takeaway I would want you to leave with is that there's no single way to be successful at this. You really want to take stock of, who do I work for, aka represent. So in my case, obviously, big brand, well-known, don't have to explain what my company does typically. But I do have to sell the process. I do have to get people excited about certain things that maybe are not as attractive, things like that. So number one, know what you're up against. What are the tools in my toolbox? What's the game that I'm playing? And what are the cards that I've been dealt here? How many analogies can I squeeze into this answer? And then figure out where you're getting the best results. So again, maybe it is LinkedIn, maybe it's not, maybe it's custom search engines, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's something completely different we didn't talk about. And then figure out the emotional currency or the love language, if you will, of everybody that you're partnering with. So you want to know, how are my candidate pools reacting to what I'm trying to do? How's my hiring teams reacting to what I'm bringing to them? How are my recruiting and sourcing partners reacting to what I'm trying to bring to them? So it's all about figuring out what makes them tick and make sure that you're checking those boxes.
Cool. Thank you very much. So guys, we had Amy today with us. Thank you very much for your insightful webinar and answering the questions. And I believe we'll have you on there today, like together with Amazing Hiring soon, with fresh new stories to tell and new yoga pants to recommend with an
Yes!
link this time. So yeah, I'll be very quick. I also want to tell a little bit about Amazing Hiring and how it all works together, and recommend everyone to test it too. The tool is basically gathering information from many different resources. So if you're not really good at finding Twitters of candidates, or you're not really good at finding Facebook or personal emails, you can basically do that through Amazing Hiring. The system does that for you. It helps you to create AI searches and to index candidates from 50 different resources. They're already matched and consolidated in one profile. I won't be selling this too hard on you. Just if you want, give it a try. And of course, the promo code is amazing, Amy. Truly amazing. So if you haven't,
that. Thank you.
yeah. So we're like promoting your personal brand, even if you don't think that to be great.
I mean, if I have one, might as well get you guys to help me out with it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And if you haven't tested the system for last 6 months, please use this one to just request a demo on our website. I will be looking forward to seeing you again, Amy, and seeing everyone who joined us today. It has been truly a pleasure.
For me as well. Thank you for hosting, and thank you everyone for the great questions and conversation. We'll see you out there.
Bye-bye.
Bye.